And you know that. We've all heard of stories of people who came to this country with no money in their pocket, didn't even speak the language, don't even know nobody, came right off the plane or a boat or whatever and struggled, but then applied themselves, learned some things, and then literally have become multimillionaires, or in some cases, billionaires. So we are 1 or 2 steps away from the biggest breakthrough in our life if we can identify the vision, the goals, the challenges, get the right coach and the right methodology to break through. And I'm happy, and also Neda happy, both of us are happy to support you on that journey, to do a strategy session. I do complimentary free strategy sessions for people all the time to help them figure out what that gap is.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Rise Up For You podcast. This is your host, Nada Lena Nasserdeen. And again, we have another amazing guest, and actually a friend of mine. I do know this person, Sir Kaya Redford. Thank you so much. Welcome to the Rise Up For You podcast.
I'm super, super excited to be here with you and your audience, Neda. I have huge amount of respect for you and all the greatness that you're doing in the world. And I know that we are of the same conversation. So I'm excited to be here today. And thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely. So just for context, for those of you that are listening, Sir Kaya and I met through a mutual friend named Bill Walsh, and I was doing a speaker program. I saw Sir Kaya speak on stage, talks a lot about mindset, neuroscience, how to optimize yourself as a human being. So really becoming that top 10%, that top 1%. And so when I heard him speak, I was like, all right, like we gotta have you on the podcast. And of course, we're building a friendship and whatnot, but I would love the audience to get to know you a little bit more. So I always ask our guests, like, tell us about yourself in your own words, and even take us back to like high school. Who were you back then?
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. So I might be maybe a somewhat unusual case of someone I found personal growth to fix my own challenges and my own problems. So I went through, in high school, I had a lot of challenges, self-worth, self-esteem issues. So I was definitely a jock, as they say. I was into sports. I played soccer. I played rugby. I thrived. I lived in England, actually, in high school. I went to a school called Cranleigh in Surrey. So I was born in Omaha, Nebraska, lived for the first few years in Spain, in Algeria, Spain, and then England. So in high school, by that time, I'm living in England. My dad is an engineer. He's a workaholic. He's never really around. My mom is going through her set of challenges because he's gone. So I'm a sports enthusiast, but I have a lot of insecurity as a young man. So that's who I am in high school.
Yeah.
I eventually come to the US. I go to UCLA, and I go to CSUN, 2 colleges to study, business administration, marketing, these types of topics. And I struggle through college because I, again, have these challenges that I have. Long story short, my dad being gone, my mom, over the many years raising us, she was frustrated. She became an alcoholic. So I kind of come from a very dysfunctional past, and that put me on the journey of meeting my mentor, Bob Proctor. I don't know if how many of you have heard of The Secret, or you read the book, The Secret. I met Bob one day, and he saw something in me. I was just there to try to find my purpose in life, my direction. And I met Bob, and Bob taught me 4 things. The first thing he taught me was that my life and where I'm at is not anything to do with really what has happened to me. I'm not a victim of my circumstances. And that he said, you create your experience of reality. So that's a big component of success, is realizing that we all, no matter what we've gone through in our lives, we all wake up every single day and can create anything we want, can heal whatever we need to heal, break through anything we wanted to break through by reading the books, going to seminars, listening to, Neda's teachings, my teachings, the other great teachings that are out there. The second thing Bob taught me is that, do you have a dream? And I said, well, I daydream every day, Bob, of a life that I don't have. I always thought of people that were wealthy and successful as they were lucky, they were at the right place at the right time, or they were given this advantage that I didn't have because of my challenges early on in life. And then the third thing, he said, what is your dream? And I told him what my dream was. And he says, Kaya, I want you to write this down. He says, you will not get in life what you wish for, what you hope for, what you pray for. He says, you will get in life what you expect. And that's when I realized, listening to the, incredible Bob Proctor, a viral movie, The Secret, that sold over 200 million copies. He was literally pouring this wisdom into my life, and realizing that I needed to change my mindset and what I expected, because I expected nothing great to happen in my life. I dreamt of great things, but I expected nothing good to happen, because that was pretty much my past. So that's who I was in high school. And that's who my maybe 32, 33 years old is when I started to finally learn about the mindset, and you create what you want, your mind and your thoughts and your beliefs, and Bob Proctor talked about it as the paradigm, your paradigm, busting through that paradigm. And that put me on the journey where I am today, and to meeting you.
I think it's a very important question. There is a lot of people, you and I are in an industry of professional development, personal development, growth. And as you know, there are a lot of people that go to the seminar like you did with Bob Proctor. There's a lot of people that go to lots of seminars, they go to conferences, they read, they do all types of things to try to achieve success, but they never actually achieve it because it doesn't really implement or land for them, right? They keep consuming content. They almost become like a self-help personal development junkie, but they never actually execute. So I want to know, like, why are you different? And what were the steps that you took to actually execute and make it? Because, I mean, you're one of the top producers in sales. I mean, you have a massive reputation, especially in the real estate industry, of like getting people to drive sales and to switch their mindset and to be excellent in performance. But what I really want to try to understand is, how come some people take the information like from Bob Proctor, they execute and they become someone like you, and then other people will go to conference and conference, listen to all the podcasts, and still don't take action or see what they want?
I think that's a fabulous, amazing question. Before me answering that specific part, I would like to just backpedal and say that because we're of the same world, Neda and myself, Kaya, we're part of the population that is going to the seminars, going to the coaching. So I just want to preface this by saying that I would say 97% of people are not reading any books and not going to any seminars and not doing any personal growth. So that would be the first gap, right? Jim Rohn, who worked with and helped Tony Robbins, and Tony Robbins certainly we'll talk about NLP at some point, neuro-linguistic programming, made famous much by Tony Robbins. Jim Rohn said, don't wish life was easier, wish you were better. So most people are, where I was at and where many people are at, they're hoping life to get better, but they're not putting in the work. They're not even reading the books. They're not even showing up to any seminars. But now let's talk about answering your question. For the people that are, that 3% or that 5%, or maybe that barely 10% of people that are actually doing personal growth, I think there is one critical difference that makes the difference with someone that actually executes and someone doesn't. There are many other factors, but if I were to go to what is one big factor that I think is at the top, and then there's other factors, point of no return. It's the idea, if you've ever read in history, most people have heard about the burning the ships. And if you ever heard anybody ever talk about burning the ships, it's actually Tariq ibn Ziyad, who in 711 AD, this is what I learned from Bob Proctor, 711 AD, he decided he wanted to conquer Spain. And again, I hate war. We actually have a leadership conflict prevention, conflict resolution program, because our idea is to prevent wars and create more unity and more prosperity, more love, and more worldwide acceptance of each other and so forth. But as a metaphor, here's a guy that decides he wants to conquer Spain, and he arrives on the coast of Spain with, he's supposed to get maybe tens of thousands of soldiers from different parts of Northern Africa. And these other boats, his allies, don't show up. So he arrives on the shore with 10% of the army that he was expecting to arrive. And as they get in the paddle boats and they're paddling to the actual beach of Spain, the soldiers are freaking out. They're like, how, we're just going to get massacred. We're going to die. So they had such fear and trepidation. Tariq ibn Ziyad looks back at the ships. He sends a couple of his men back to the ships, and he burns the ships down in the ocean. And he looks at his men and he says to his men, you either are going to arrive at the shore and you're going to fight for this vision. You're going to go to war. You're going to make this happen, or you're going to die. There is no getting back on a boat. There is no going back home. You're either going to win this war or you're going to perish. And what happened is these soldiers had a sense of urgency, had a kill or be killed mindset. And they actually went and, as history has it, they conquered Spain, and their families owned and controlled Spain for over 500 years. So please, I want, as you're watching this, to know I'm not celebrating at all country going into another country and conquering people. I just want you to understand psychology of a goal. What happens is people want something, they're going for something, but they're not committed. They're half-assed. If it works, if it happens, if they get lucky and money comes their way fast and quickly, now all of a sudden they're committed. But if they don't get the results right away, they give up immediately and they get back on the ships and they try to go back home. The difference with me, what I noticed is that I had no purpose direction in my early 20s and my 30s. I'm embarrassed to admit that even though today I train the biggest companies in the world, actually we just trained Ajinomoto probably few months ago. They did 12.9 billion in revenue last year. Their valuation is 220 billion. We trained the biggest Chase Bank, Wells Fargo, Sotheby's, Century 21, the biggest New York Life, the financial service companies, the network marketers. We're now training the fastest growing network marketing company called LifeWave. They do the stem cell patches 4 years in a row. So even though we're now working with these biggest companies, where I was at was I had no purpose, no direction 10, 15, 20 some years ago. And either I was going to break through or I felt like I was just going to implode and die and do nothing. So I think what happens is people have a backup plan and they're not fully committed. So when you go to a seminar and if you're thinking, I want this goal, you still have a backup plan or you still have a comfort zone, you still want to stay comfortable in the old version of you, then you're going to likely stay back here instead of going here. So I would just say the biggest issue is a lack of commitment and a lack of decision and a lack of putting your stake in the ground and say, this is going to be, and I've got no backup plan. I'm either going to do this or I'm not going to be here. I mean, it's a non-negotiable decision that you make. And I think knowing what I know a little bit about you, Nada, this is what I believe is who you are. And this is who are the top 1%. They don't make excuses. There is no negotiation. They give it everything. And that's just it. It's just a mindset.
It's interesting that I totally agree with you, by the way. And I talk a lot about this is, being interested versus being committed. And I know John Assaraf talks about it. I mean, there's a lot of great people that talk about this concept, but I automatically flashed back to when I was going into college, when you were talking, and it reminded me of a time when I went into university for music. And I remember my dad telling me he was so mad that I went to school for music. He wanted me to be a doctor and a lawyer. And I had like all the, the good grades and GPA. And I remember him saying like, you can pursue music if you want, but get a degree in something else. That way, in case something happens, you have a degree in, law, or you have a degree in business or medicine or whatever. And I remember saying, yeah, but if I do that, then I'm giving myself an out. Like I have to get my degree in music because then I have no choice but to succeed in music. And when you were talking, I remember having that thought when I was 17, 18. Now I didn't know what that meant. Now, as I'm older, I recognize like, oh, that was something maybe that was innate in me when I was younger. So then it drives me to this next question is, how do we get that mindset?
I love your questions because they really make you reflect. And what I love about this is just so as you're watching this, these questions we haven't prepared. We're just authentically, I don't even know what the questions are. And I think that's best because what it does is it helps us tap into something that we didn't even necessarily know was there. So when you ask, how does someone get that mindset? I would say the first thing always is we all have to have a vision.
Yeah.
In the Bible, they talk about a man or a woman without vision perishes. You have to have a goal. So first step to having that bulletproof mindset, that confidence to go after something and not give up and be in the top 1% is you got to have a vision. You got to know where you're going. And then within the vision, you got to break it down into goals. And I'm preaching to the choir. Y'all, most people know this, but then statistics say something like 66% of people don't even ever write down any goals. They have no vision.
Yeah.
They're wanderers. So 80
8% accomplish them. Yeah. 8%.
Most people are just wandering through life, no intention, no goals. So you got to have a vision, and then break that down to goals. And then we hear this a million times. You got to write your goals out, all that. The second thing I think we need to do is we need to get rid of all of our blind spots. So what you need to do is write down what is in the way of the vision. What are your, for me, issues? Procrastination. I spent 35 years, I'm 53 now, but 33 years before I met Bob Proctor, procrastinating. Fear of rejection. When I first started anything, I was like not even accepting myself. Like I when I was a young man, I used to speak like this. I didn't know I was speaking like this, but I would speak like this. And my dad, who was alive at the time, was so frustrated, he would literally come up to me and take his hand, slap my hand out of my mouth. Like, will you just get your hands out of your mouth and just communicate?
Yeah.
Well, I had so much, I used to stutter, so procrastination is a big thing.
For those of you that are listening to the podcast in the car, Kaya was showing that he would speak with his hand, like over his mouth, over his lips.
Yeah. So you can relate to this as you're hearing me speak, because we all know someone who has insecurity. So procrastination, I would start things and never finish them, never follow through. I would break my word to myself and to others all the time as a young man. Number two, fear. I had a fear of public speaking. I had a fear of rejection. Number three, self-doubt. I didn't think I wasn't good enough. I knew I wasn't good enough. I'm not embarrassed. I'm embarrassed to admit, but I'm not embarrassed to admit, because I want to create a safe space that if I was able to break through and create what most people would say is an amazing life today, anybody can break through. But you got to identify what are your top issues. So procrastination, fear, self-doubt. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I can't do it. And then there's other things like a lack of discipline, a lack of accountability, the having negative naysayers in your life, not having strong boundaries with people. Another one is we know what we need to do. We're very good at knowing exactly what we need to do, but come time to actually doing it, we don't do it, meaning we talk a good game, but we don't walk a good walk. All these issues, you got to be honest with yourself. You got to write them out. And I would say, if you're listening to this in an audio, I'm showing a heart sign. I would say, do this with compassion and self-love. I'm not inviting anybody to beat themselves up and criticize themselves themselves. I'm inviting us all to take a deep, loving, compassionate reflection of yourself, almost like you were speaking to your child who has so much potential, but there's something that's in the way, some fear, some anxiety, and you're wanting to help them break through that. So once you've got the vision, you've got the goals, then you have what are your issues or challenges. Then what you need to do is get a coach. Whether it's Nada, whether it's Bob Proctor, whether it's YouTube, whether it's reading books, got to get a coach who can help you break through. Because why did Michael Jordan have a coach? Why does LeBron James have 5 coaches? You don't think by this point he knows how to maintain an optimal body better than anybody else? He could be the teacher of it to anybody in the NBA, but why does he have 5 coaches? Why does he have a nutrition coach? Why do all these people have a coach? Because the coach can see things in your blind spots that you can't see, right? So most people are looking through life through a bubble. They're looking through this. And Albert Einstein says that you can't solve a problem through the level of thinking that created the problem. So the moment you're looking at your problem through your own perspective, you're locked into trying to see the label of a jar from inside the jar. You can't see the label of the jar on the outside of the jar from inside the jar. The only person that can see the label on the jar is someone outside the jar, which is a coach. Coach can see things about you you can't see within yourself, especially if they're highly trained. Now you have the coach and you say, look, coach, I want to achieve this goal, this vision, these goals. These are my challenges. Do you have any methodology that you can help me to break through that? And I would say one of the greatest technologies and methodologies that both Nada and myself are big fans of is neuro-linguistic programming. It's been made famous by Tony Robbins. It was founded and created by Richard Bandler and John Grinder. I'm master certified and trainer's trainer in these techniques directly from the same person that trained Tony Robbins, which is Richard Bandler. I'm also heavily trained in another technology called timeline therapy, trained by the founder and creator of timeline therapy, Tad James, who's no longer with us. May his spirit rest in peace. And so when you have these methodologies that are cutting edge technologies that helps a person break through those challenges to achieve their goals, now you are in you're in the arena of the top 1% to 3%, because most people are sitting in the stadium watching the game. They're not on the field playing the game. The moment you go through this coaching and these breakthroughs, whether it's myself or Tony Robbins or whoever it is, or Nada, or whoever you choose, there's many other Joe Dispenza, and there's many other famous coaches out there doing great work. Once you get plugged in with a coach and you break through these things, then you're unstoppable. I always say that if you've ever heard the book or read the book, Think and Grow Rich with Napoleon Hill, in his second book, The Power of the Mastermind, he wrote where there is a poverty stream. He was talking about how people can become wealthy. He said there's a poverty stream. And if you're seeing my hands here, if you're not seeing my hands, if you're listening to the audio, I want you to imagine there's a river of poverty or a river of mediocrity. And he said, then there's the river of abundance. And most people go, where the heck is the river of abundance? And I spent my whole life trying to create wealth and freedom for myself and my family, and I haven't manifested it. Where the heck is this opportunity? And he says, most people think it's somewhere where you can't possibly find it. He says, in actuality, both of those rivers, the poverty or mediocrity river and the abundance river, are side by side. They're parallel to each other, close to one another. Napoleon Hill himself said, all you have to do is find out what are the one or two things that's blocking you. What are the one or two things that's holding you back? Fear, procrastination, limiting beliefs, whatever other stream of things, inner conflicts. Once you find out what those one or two things are and you break through those one or two things with a coach, you instantly can move from the stuck stream, the poverty stream, straight to the wealthy stream. And you know that. We've all heard of stories of people who came to this country with no money in their pocket, didn't even speak the language, don't even know nobody, came right off the plane or a boat or whatever and struggled, but then applied themselves, learned some things, and then literally have become multimillionaires, or in some cases, billionaires. So we are one or two steps away from the biggest breakthrough in our life if we can identify the vision, the goals, the challenges, get the right coach and the right methodology to break through. And I'm happy, and also Nada happy, both of us are happy to support you on that journey, to do a strategy session. I do complimentary free strategy sessions for people all the time to help them figure out what that gap is.
Yeah. I love that. That was super empowering. I love hearing you talk, and I'm very happy that, you know, we brought you on the show so that you could share with our audience, because that is the disconnect. And I think that there's a disconnect on a multitude of levels. It's not just a disconnect getting into the top 10% or the top 1%. It's also, I think, I always say the greatest tragedy is wasted human potential. And I think that especially in today's world, and as we're moving further into the future, more and more people are struggling with fulfillment, with clarity. In some cases, it feels like we are going backwards from a conscious perspective. And all of those things obviously impact our success. So I think that what you're doing, and obviously what we're doing here at Rise Up For You, is super critical and important to not just optimize human performance and human potential, but just to elevate the human condition as a whole, right? Like that eventually is the outcome, because when you optimize yourself, then you have something to give to others. You have impact, you have influence where you can create change. I'd love to go into the power section of the interview, Kaya, and ask you some rapid fire questions.
Let's go.
Let's go. So first question is, if you can leave the world with one final message, we call it our golden nugget, what would that be for you?
We hear this all the time. Love is the answer, right? And some people think love is sometimes weakness and it's not powerful enough to be the answer. I truly believe love is the answer, because if you ever have heard of or studied the book, A Course in Miracles, it talks about you have one of two choices in life, love or fear. And every thought, decision, behavior, and action you do in your life is either stemming from a vibration of love, abundance, opportunity, growth, or fear, scarcity, worry, self-judgment, judgment of others. So I would say one message for the world is love yourself, and love yourself enough to grow into the full potential of your being.
Yeah, I love that. And as you know, here at Rise Up For You, our primary source is soft skills. Like, we believe that the human skills, the soft skills, confidence, emotional intelligence, that mindset, being a transformative leader, influencing in your communication. I mean, those are the power, or the golden skills, we call them. So for you, just out of curiosity, how have soft skills served you?
Now that you have your vision, you have your goals, and you have removed the blocks or the challenges, now you want what Neda's just mentioning, you want the soft skills, because you could have the right mindset. Your heart could be in the right place, but you may not be a very good, effective communicator. You may not in sales, you may not be a good closer. We just got off a cruise and I spoke to about 450 entrepreneurs, and most of them I've identified that they've got great visions, they've got good goals, they got great products and services. They're even good sometimes talking to people, but they're not good at closing. So what neuro-linguistic programming does, neuro mindset, linguistic language, effective communication, and programming, taking massive action in all of your behavior, what NLP illuminates is when you have the right mindset, you have the right, as Nada says, the right soft skills, communication skills, sales skills, entrepreneurial skills, strategies, and you take the massive action, you have power and you have influence. Yeah. And what NLP also illuminates is if you're lacking any one of those, in others, if you have all the other good things, but you lack the soft skills she's talking about, then you lack power, you lack influence, and life will show up as a struggle.
100%. Totally agree with that. I have one final question for you. But yes. Before I ask, tell us where we can find you, how people can connect with you, brag a little bit about where you're at today.
Okay, so best place to find us is you can actually go to our website. And you have everything you want to know about us there. And you can also text us if you want a free gift, like we give a free personality sales report that will help you close more deals and make more money. And what you would do to get that is you would just text the word top to the phone number 949-693-7419, 949-693-7419. You would text the word top, that's spelled T-O-P, and then we will get you some free gifts. We'll also invite you to an event and give you a free ticket to a live event. We do events all over the world and the country, so we have some amazing gifts for you.
Very good. Thank you. Sir Kaya, final question. As you know, we're the company Rise Up For You. What comes to mind when you hear that phrase?
Rise Up For You, for me, represents our purpose in life and our destiny. Rise up for you means to me that you owe it to yourself. Some say that God's gift or the universe's gift to you is your purpose in life, and your gift back to your creator, whatever we see as your creator, gift back to your creator is what you do with that purpose in life. So rise up for you means to me rising up for you and giving your gift to the world. And it's probably, I would say, the most noble thing that we could even do in our lifetime.
I totally agree with that. Sir Kaya Redford, thank you so much for joining the Rise Up For You podcast today.
I'm super, super excited. Thank you so much for what you're doing, Nada. And I know that we're going to have a great impact in the world together, like brothers and sisters, locking arms, making the world a better place.
Awesome. And thank you everyone else for joining the Rise Up For You podcast today. It's such an honor to have you with us every single week. We are bringing you brand new episodes with amazing thought leaders, entrepreneurs, executives from around the world that are here to show up for you. They come on this show so that they can add value and they can help you be the absolute best you can be. Thanks again for joining us, and I'll see you next time. Thank you, Sir Kaya.
Thank you.